These are the foods that most women think are healthy, but are actually making them sick. And it fooled me for the longest time too, even as a certified nutritionist. I was eating clean, choosing whole foods, reading labels, and yet I was still extremely bloated, puffy, tired after meals, inflamed, and having terrible period cramps. Until I did a gut cleanse, healed my gut barrier, and finally understood why these foods were keeping me inflamed in the first place. Now, before I get into these foods, one really important thing. I still believe in eating like our ancestors. Whole foods, grass-fed or pasture-raised meat, full-fat dairy, cooking from scratch. The Mediterranean diet, the Blue Zone diet, these are some of the healthiest ways of eating on this planet. But what I didn't realize until doing this gut cleanse is that just because a food is healthy on paper doesn't mean your body can handle it right now. Our bodies are so unique. Some foods that are going to trigger me are going to be fine for you and vice versa. But as long as your gut is compromised, they're probably going to trigger all of us. And more people than you think have a damaged gut lining. And it makes sense because modern life really primes us for it. All the stress that we're living in, the antibiotics, the medications, eating out constantly, living in fight or flight. And when your gut lining is damaged, even the healthiest foods become fuel on the fire. So this video is not about foods that are universally bad. It's about those healthy foods that are making you sick right now because your gut isn't ready for them. Most of these you will be able to eat again, don't worry, but first you need to heal. And to heal, you need to know what to remove and why. And trust me, some of these are going to surprise you. Number one, nuts and nut butters. I always thought nuts are superfoods. Healthy fats, protein, fiber, but for someone with gut inflammation, they're actually one of the worst things you can eat. Nuts are extremely high in phytic acid, which is an anti-nutrient that binds to things like zinc, iron, magnesium, and calcium and blocks your body from absorbing them. But these are the exact minerals that you need to repair a damaged gut lining. So you think you're nourishing yourself, but really you're just blocking the nutrients that you need most. Nuts are also high in omega-6 fatty acids, and most people already have a very unbalanced ratio between omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. So when you add a handful of nuts on top of that, it's only going to make it even more pro-inflammatory. Especially peanuts, because they're not actually nuts, they are legumes, and they grow underground and are highly susceptible to a mold that produces aflatoxins. And those aflatoxins can damage your liver and drive inflammation. And even organic peanut butter can contain them because the contamination happens during growth and storage and not from things like pesticides. And unless nuts have been soaked and sprouted, which almost no one does, they're extremely hard to digest in an already compromised system. Number two, certain vegetables. Some vegetables can be really bad for a damaged gut because of something called lectins. Lectins are the proteins that are part of the natural defense system of the plant. And in a healthy gut, they just pass right through. But in a compromised gut, they not only directly irritate the lining, but also widen the gaps in the gut barrier. And that means more undigested food particles can pass through, as well as bacterial toxins that can leak into your bloodstream. So while you're thinking you're actually healing yourself by eating a big salad, you're actually making your permeability worse. And the main vegetables here to watch out are nightshades. So anything like tomatoes, bell peppers, eggplant, and white potatoes. On top of that, white potatoes specifically also contain a natural pesticide, which sits primarily in the skin and the green areas. Like any other pesticide, they can also further damage your cell membranes. Plus, they have a higher glycemic index than white rice, which means they spike your blood sugar more, trigger insulin, trigger inflammation, and you're right back in that cycle. Then there's also raw spinach, which is extremely high in oxalates, which again irritate the gut lining and interfere with mineral absorption. So that daily spinach smoothie is really just flooding your inflamed gut with compounds that it can't process. And don't get me wrong, these foods are incredibly nutrient dense, but nutrient density is irrelevant if A, your gut can't absorb these nutrients, and B, the anti-nutrients in those vegetables are actively worsening your condition. Number three is dairy, except for ghee. Full fat, grass-fed dairy is ancestral. Yogurt has prebiotics and cheese is protein. And for some people with a healthy gut, high quality fermented dairy is genuinely beneficial. But for someone with intestinal permeability, dairy is one of the most common inflammatory triggers. The primary issue is A1 casein, which is the dominant protein in most cow's milk. When you digest it, it produces a peptide called BCM7, and that triggers inflammation, slows gut motility, causing bloating and constipation, and stimulates mucus production that affects nutrient absorption. And here's what I didn't know: even if you're not lactose intolerant, you can still react to dairy when your gut is inflamed. But the crazy part is that dairy proteins can actually trigger a delayed immune response and low-grade chronic inflammation that shows up 24 to 72 hours later. So you don't necessarily connect the yogurt that you had 2 to 3 days ago to the brain fog and bloating that you have today. The one dairy exception here is ghee. With ghee, the casein and the lactose have been removed, leaving pure butterfat rich in butyrate, which is a short-chain fatty acid that actually heals your gut lining. Number 4, legumes. Legumes are a blue zone staple, but there's a difference between a food being healthy for a population with robust gut health built over generations, and that same food for someone whose gut has been wrecked by years of stress, antibiotics, and chronic inflammation. Legumes contain some of the highest lectin concentrations out of any food group. They're also very high in phytic acid, again blocking mineral absorption, and they contain oligosaccharides, which are very complex sugars that humans literally don't have the enzymes for to break them down. So they just go undigested into the large intestine, get fermented, and then that fermentation produces gas, bloating, and all the fun stuff. Number 5 is eating out and clean protein bars. Why? Because of hidden seed oils. Even if you're choosing the healthy option at a restaurant, you're almost certainly consuming seed oils. Things like canola, sunflower, soybean, corn, they're the base of almost all commercial food because they are cheap. The grilled chicken, probably grilled in canola oil. A healthy salad probably has a soybean oil dressing. The healthy protein bar probably is also filled with seed oils. The problem with those is their extremely high omega-6 content. We evolved on a omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of roughly 1:1 to 4:1. The modern Western diet is closer to 20:1 to even 25:1. That is massively pro-inflammatory. And when seed oils are heated, which they always are in restaurant kitchens, they oxidize and produce aldehydes, which are directly toxic to cells. They damage the gut lining, drive systemic inflammation, and have been linked to insulin resistance. Protein bars are typically, there are exceptions, but typically just as bad. They combine dairy, whey, sugar alcohols that disrupt your microbiome, seed oils, and often chicory root fiber, which is a FODMAP that causes severe bloating in people with gut issues. Number 6, wheat products, including sourdough, rye, spelt, and einkorn. I also thought sourdough made with organic flour is perfectly fine, and technically sourdough fermentation does partially break down gluten, and einkorn does contain less gluten than modern wheat, but for a damaged gut, there's still a problem. When gluten is digested, it produces gliadin, which then triggers the release of zonulin in your intestinal lining. Zonulin's sole job is to open the tight junctions between intestinal cells. That is literally the mechanism that causes leaky gut. In a healthy gut, those junctions open slightly and then close again. In a compromised gut, they don't really close anymore. So the gut stays permeable and the inflammation rises. Even in true long fermented sourdough, 20 to 50% of the original gluten still remains. And all grain-based products, even gluten-free, contain amylopectin A, which is a starch that converts to glucose faster than any other carb. So 2 slices of whole wheat bread spike your blood sugar higher than 2 tablespoons of table sugar. Number 7, diet and sugar-free products. The biggest misconception is that 0 sugar means it's better for you. Artificial sweeteners alter your microbiome and reduce beneficial bacteria, specifically the exact 2 strains that you're trying to rebuild during your gut healing. And one landmark study found that artificial sweeteners are actually inducing glucose intolerance, which is the exact thing that people consume them to avoid, by disrupting the gut bacteria that regulate blood sugar. So your diet drink is probably making things worse, not better. And again, they usually contain sugar alcohols. Sugar alcohols that are found in most sugar-free snacks don't get absorbed by the small intestine. So then they just travel through all the way to the large intestine, ferment, and again, that fermentation causes bloating, gas, constipation, and diarrhea. Number 8 is soy in processed forms. Asian cultures eat soy and they're among the healthiest populations on this world. But the soy that they eat, miso, tempeh, natto, is fermented. And fermentation breaks down the phytic acid, reduces lectins, and creates beneficial probiotics. That's genuinely health promoting. Processed soy, on the other hand, like these, is extracted using chemical solvents, stripped of all the beneficial compounds, and concentrated into something your gut was never designed for. It also contains a compound that mimics estrogen. And in a compromised gut where the estrobolome is already dysfunctional, your body cannot clear that excess estrogen load. And that typically leads to weight gain, water retention, PMS, mood swings, and more inflammation. And unfortunately, that processed soy is everywhere. Protein powders, bars, chocolate, baked goods, supplements, and even cooking sprays. Number 9 are plant milks. Plant milks are the default healthy swap for dairy, but I hate to break it to you, but majority of them are just as problematic for different reasons. Oat milk is probably the biggest offender because oats contain avenin, which is a protein that is structurally similar to gluten. And so that can trigger the exact same zonulin response we were talking about earlier. So if you're gluten-free, but you're drinking dairy milk daily, you might be unknowingly keeping your gut barrier open. They also typically contain seed oils, have a high glycemic index, even without added sugars, and typically contain emulsifiers and gums that disrupt your gut mucosal barrier. But even things like almond milk still usually have seed oils and emulsifiers and gums, and most brands are only 2 to 3% of actual almonds. Rice milk is generally well tolerated, but very high glycemic. Coconut milk from cartons usually contain guar gum. And so the moral of the story is most commercial plant milks are ultra processed products, just masquerading as whole foods. 8 to 15 ingredients, and actual milk from any source should have 1. And lastly, we have grass-fed beef. This might surprise you the most because grass-fed beef is genuinely a high quality protein. It's rich in iron, B12, zinc, omega-3s, so why did it make the list? The issue is not the quality, it's how your damaged gut handles it. Red meat requires very strong stomach acid to break it down, which is often reduced when your gut is inflamed. So the protein isn't fully digested, and then those larger fragments are producing inflammatory byproducts that can trigger an immune response when crossing a permeable gut barrier. Red meat also promotes the growth of pro-inflammatory bacteria species, which is obviously very counterproductive during the healing phase. So again, it doesn't mean that grass-fed beef is bad, but during an active healing phase, lighter proteins like chicken or white fish way easier on your system. So I know this feels like a lot, and you might be asking, well, what can I eat? Trust me, I thought the exact same way at first. But remember, all of this is temporary. This is not a forever diet. This is a healing protocol, a focused period where you remove what's keeping your body inflamed so that it can actually repair itself. So most of these foods, like the legumes, the nuts, the nightshades, the sourdough, the dairy, the beef, you will likely eat again. I eat most of them now, but the difference is that I healed my gut first, and I repaired the lining, I rebalanced my microbiome, I got my nervous system out of fight or flight, and then I reintroduced them one at a time and found out what amounts my body can handle. Same foods, but just completely different outcomes. If you want to know exactly how to heal your gut barrier and your gut, the full 30-day protocol, step by step, what to eat, what supplements to take, how to regulate your nervous system, how to reintroduce the food safely and when, I made a complete video on just that. It's right here if you want to watch that next. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you over there. Bye.